I turned the lights off on purpose, not to sleep, but to remove every excuse I had left. Darkness does something honesty can't. It doesn't let you hide behind distractions. No screens, no movement, just silence pressing against your chest, like it's waiting for you to admit something you've been rehearsing how to avoid. And last night, I stopped negotiating with it. You ever notice how a man can control entire rooms, but lose control the moment he's alone? I've built a life where decisions happen fast, clean, final. People expect certainty from me. I deliver it without hesitation. But last night, sitting at the edge of my bed, staring into nothing, I realized something that didn't fit that version of me. I've been delaying one decision, for you. Not because I didn't know what to do, but because I knew exactly what it would cost. And here's the part I hate admitting. I wasn't afraid of losing you. I was afraid of facing who I become without you. That thought didn't come gently. It slipped in between memories I didn't invite. The way you used to pause before answering something important. The way your voice changed when you were halfway out but hadn't said it yet. I saw it. Every time. I just chose a different interpretation. Because the truth would have required action, and action would have ended this. The room felt smaller the longer I sat there. Not physically, but mentally. Like every version of me that avoided this moment was sitting across from me, waiting to see if I'd finally say it out loud. My jaw tightened. My hands stayed still. I didn't reach for anything. No distractions. No escape. Just one question echoing louder than anything else. Why am I still holding on to something that's already letting go of me? I didn't answer it, not immediately, because answering it would mean I'd have to confront something deeper, something uglier. Control is easy when outcomes don't involve your heart, but love exposes the parts of you that don't follow logic, and I built my entire life on logic. That's where the conflict started. Part of me wanted to hold on, fight harder, prove something, fix something, rewrite something that was already slipping. That part of me doesn't lose, doesn't quit, doesn't walk away. But another part, quieter, sharper, kept asking a different question. What if staying is the actual failure? That thought didn't sit well. It challenged everything I've believed about persistence, loyalty, commitment, but the more I sat with it, the more it made something inside me uncomfortable, because I realized I wasn't staying out of strength, I was staying out of resistance to change. That's the uncomfortable truth no one wants to say out loud. Sometimes we don't hold on because something is right. We hold on because letting go would force us to rebuild ourselves from nothing. And I didn't want that. Not again. I've done that before. Rebuilt, rewired, reinvented. It's not inspiring like people make it sound. It's lonely. It's brutal. It strips you down to versions of yourself you don't recognize until you're forced to. And somewhere along the way, you became the one thing that made me feel like I didn't have to do that again. So I ignored the signs, minimized the distance, translated your silence into patience instead of absence. Not because I'm blind, but because I didn't want to see. Let me ask you something, and don't answer it quickly. Have you ever convinced yourself something was real, just because the alternative felt too empty to accept? Yeah, that's where I was sitting last night, right in the middle of that lie. And for the first time, I didn't try to escape it. I didn't reach for noise. I didn't distract myself with work or movement or anything that usually keeps me ahead of my own thoughts. I stayed, and the longer I stayed, the clearer it became. This wasn't about you anymore. It was about me avoiding a version of myself I didn't want to meet, the one who lets go, the one who walks away without closure, the one who accepts that not everything can be fixed, even if you're capable of fixing almost everything else. That version of me felt unfamiliar, dangerous even, because once you become that person, once you accept that some things end without your permission, you can't go back to believing control is absolute. And that belief, that's been my foundation. So I sat there, caught between two identities, the man who holds on and the man who knows when to stop. And the silence didn't help me choose. It just kept asking, how much longer are you going to pretend this decision isn't already made? I've walked into rooms where people stopped talking the moment I entered, and I knew exactly why. Not arrogance, awareness. There's a certain weight a man carries when he's built himself from nothing. It shows in how he stands, how he listens, how he decides. I don't raise my voice to be heard. I don't repeat myself to be understood. And when I say something will happen, it does. That's the version of me the world knows. Precise, controlled, unshakable. But there's something no one sees, and I made sure of that. Because the truth doesn't fit the image. The truth is, there's a place where all of that disappears. Not weakens, not fades. Disappears. You ever notice how the strongest people have one blind spot they refuse to examine? You were mine. It didn't happen all at once. It never does. It started in small moments. Conversations where I let things slide that I wouldn't tolerate from anyone else. Delays I justified. silences I interpreted as depth instead of distance. I saw the inconsistencies, I just didn't treat them like threats, and that's the mistake I keep replaying. Not that I didn't know, but that I chose not to act on what I knew. Because with you, I wasn't operating from strength. I was negotiating with my own standards. There's a memory I can't shake. Late evening, the city was still awake, but my place felt isolated, like the walls were holding their breath. You were sitting across from me, not saying much, just enough to keep things from collapsing completely. And I remember watching you, not with affection, but with calculation, trying to read what you weren't saying. That's when it hit me, quietly, almost too subtle to catch. I don't trust this moment, but I ignored it. Do you understand how dangerous that is? When a man who trusts his instincts in every other area decides to doubt them in the one place it matters most? That's not love, that's self-betrayal. And I did it more than once. I told myself you were different, that you just needed time to open up, to align, to meet me where I was. I gave you space, not because you earned it, but because I was afraid of what pushing for clarity might reveal. That's the uncomfortable truth. I didn't lose control because of you. I handed it over, slowly, strategically, disguised as patience. There's a difference between being calm and being passive. I've mastered calm, but with you, I crossed into something else, something quieter, something weaker. And I hate that word, because it doesn't fit me, except it did in this. You see, power isn't about never bending, it's about knowing when you are and why, and I bent in ways I never acknowledged, not outwardly, never obvious, but internally. I adjusted, lowered expectations, reframed behaviors, accepted things that didn't align with who I am, all to preserve something that felt like it mattered. But here's the part that doesn't sit right. Why was I so willing to protect something that was never protecting me? That question, I've been avoiding it. Because answering it forces me to confront something deeper than just you. It forces me to look at myself without the armor, and I don't like what that might reveal. There's this idea people believe that powerful men don't get attached the same way, that we move on faster, detach cleaner, feel less. That's not true. We just hide it better. We know how to compartmentalize, how to function while something inside us is off. But just because it's hidden doesn't mean it's not there. And with you, it was there, in the pauses between decisions, in the moments where I hesitated when I shouldn't have, in the nights where I chose silence over clarity because I didn't want to disrupt what little stability we had. That's not who I am, or at least, that's not who I thought I was. Let me ask you something, and be honest with yourself when you answer this. Have you ever become a version of yourself you don't respect, just to keep someone from leaving? Because I did. Not completely, not enough for anyone else to notice, but enough for me to feel it. And once you feel that shift, you can't unfeel it. It sits with you, quiet, persistent, waiting for you to either correct it or keep ignoring it until it becomes who you are. I didn't correct it, not then. I told myself I was choosing peace over conflict, that I was being mature, understanding, controlled. But beneath all of that was something I didn't want to admit. I was afraid, not of losing you, but of confirming that everything I sensed from the beginning was real. Because if that was true, then it means I saw it early, and stayed anyway. That realization, it doesn't just question your judgment, it questions your discipline, and that's where things start to unravel. Slowly, quietly, until one moment forces you to see all of it at once. I think you already know which moment I'm talking about, the one I haven't said out loud yet. 3:07 a.m., not 3 SWAU, not 3:15. I remember the exact minute because that's when the silence stopped being quiet and started becoming loud. The room hadn't changed. Same dim light leaking through the curtains. Same still air. Same phone resting face down like it was hiding from me. But something shifted internally, like a switch flipped without asking for permission. And for the first time all night, I stopped thinking about you. I started thinking about the truth, not the version I've been editing, not the one that keeps things intact, the raw one, the one that doesn't care how it lands. It hit me fast, too fast to soften. I wasn't fighting for us. I was fighting for the idea of you. And that realization didn't feel like clarity. It felt like betrayal, not from you, from me. Because deep down I knew there were gaps, moments that didn't align, reactions that felt off. But I filled those gaps with potential, with assumptions, with hope disguised as certainty. I built a version of you that made staying make sense, and then I blamed reality for not matching it. That's the part that broke something. You ever realize you've been loyal to something that never actually existed? Not a person, but a version of them you created just to justify why you stayed? That's not love. That's projection. And I don't make mistakes like that, except I did. There was a memory that came back in that moment, clearer than it's ever been. We were sitting together, but you felt far. Not physically, something else, something harder to explain. I remember asking you a simple question, and the way you answered it, too carefully, like you were choosing words not to express, but to avoid. I felt it, that subtle distance, that hesitation, and I told myself it meant you were thinking deeply, but now I see it for what it was. You were already halfway gone, and I was still trying to build something with what was left. That's not strength, that's denial with discipline. Here's the uncomfortable truth no one wants to sit with. Sometimes we don't fall for people, we fall for the way we feel when we imagine who they could be, and once that version is built, we protect it. Defend it, even when reality starts pulling it apart piece by piece. That's what I was doing, protecting an illusion, like it was something real, and when that illusion started cracking, I didn't question it, I reinforced it. That's when it collapsed. Not slowly, not gracefully, it dropped all at once. Like something inside me finally refused to hold it together anymore. My chest tightened, not from pain, from recognition, because I saw every moment I ignored, every signal I reinterpreted, every instinct I silenced, all of it, lined up in one brutal sequence. And there was no one else to blame. That's the part people skip. It's easier to say someone hurt you, harder to admit you participated in your own confusion. I did, fully, and sitting there, in that exact moment, I realized something I didn't expect to feel. Embarrassment, not heartbreak, not anger, embarrassment, because I've always trusted my ability to read people, to see patterns, to catch inconsistencies before they become problems. But with you, I ignored my own system, and now I had to sit with the consequences of that, alone, in silence. At 3:07 a.m., let me ask you something. What hurts more, being lied to, or realizing you had the truth the entire time and chose something else? Don't answer that too quickly, because the second one stays with you longer. It lingers, it reshapes how you trust yourself, and that's where this gets dangerous. Because once you start doubting your own judgment, everything else becomes unstable, and I don't operate like that, I can't. So something had to shift, not externally, internally, the way I see, the way I decide, the way I trust what I feel before I try to explain it, because what I felt from the beginning wasn't wrong, I just didn't want it to be right. That's the truth I couldn't escape anymore, and once that settled in, everything about you changed, not who you are. But how clearly I could finally see it. No filters, no edits, no imagined potential, just reality. And reality doesn't negotiate. It doesn't adjust to what you want. It stands there, waiting for you to either accept it or keep lying to yourself. I sat there for a long time after that, not moving, not thinking, just absorbing it. Because once you see something that clearly, you don't get to go back. And that's when the next question showed up. Quiet, uncomfortable, unavoidable. If I wasn't fighting for you, then what exactly have I been holding on to this entire time? There's a version of the truth I almost said out loud that night. But I stopped myself. Not because it wasn't real, because it was too precise. I was still sitting there. Same position, same silence. But something inside me had shifted from confusion to calculation. Not cold, just clear. And clarity has a way of stripping emotion down to something almost surgical. Love didn't fail here. And that's the part people get wrong. It didn't collapse because feelings disappeared. It collapsed because something became uneven. And neither of us said it out loud. You felt it. I felt it. But only one of us adjusted to keep things from breaking. And it wasn't you. That realization didn't hurt the way I expected. It didn't feel like heartbreak. It felt like exposure, like standing in front of a mirror that doesn't reflect how you see yourself, but how you actually are. Because if I'm honest, I wasn't staying out of love. I was staying because leaving would have forced me to admit something I don't tolerate in myself, that I was wrong about you. And that doesn't sit well with me. You see, I've built my life on precision. I read people, I anticipate behavior, I don't invest where there's uncertainty. That's how I win. But with you, I ignored that system. Not accidentally, deliberately. That's the uncomfortable truth. I saw the imbalance early, and instead of stepping back, I leaned in harder, gave more, explained more, justified more, like effort could compensate for what wasn't naturally there. It can't, and deep down I knew that. But walking away at that point would have meant I misjudged you from the beginning, that I overlooked something obvious, that I broke my own standard, so I stayed, not because it was right, but because leaving would have bruised my ego in a way I didn't want to confront. Let me ask you something, and don't rush this answer. Have you ever stayed in something, not because you believed in it, but because you didn't want to face what it says about your judgment if you leave? That's where I was, and that's a dangerous place for someone like me, because I don't build my identity around emotion, I build it around accuracy, so when those two things collide, something has to give, and it wasn't going to be my identity, so instead, I bent the truth, quietly, subtly. I told myself you were just different, that your way of showing up didn't need to match mine, that depth doesn't always look consistent, that silence doesn't always mean absence. All of that sounds reasonable. Until you realize you're the only one making those interpretations, that's when it stops being understanding and starts becoming self-deception. And I crossed that line. More than once. There's a moment I haven't talked about. Not because I forgot, because I remember it too clearly. We were in the same space, but not in the same reality. You were there, physically present, but something in you had already detached. I felt it, not in what you said, but in what you didn't. And I remember thinking, if I ask the wrong question right now, everything ends. So I didn't ask. I chose silence over truth. That's not strength. That's fear wearing discipline as a disguise. And I hate admitting that, because fear isn't something I negotiate with, except I did. Right there, with you. I convinced myself I was protecting the connection, but I wasn't. I was protecting myself from the answer I already knew was waiting. And that's when it becomes clear. This wasn't about love failing. This was about me refusing to confront reality, because it didn't align with the decision I had already made, to stay, to invest, to believe, and once you've made that kind of decision, walking it back feels like losing. But here's the pattern interrupt no one prepares you for. Sometimes walking away isn't losing. It's the only move that proves you haven't already lost yourself. That thought sat with me. Uncomfortable. Unsettling. Because if that's true, then every extra moment I stayed after seeing the truth wasn't loyalty, it was delay, and delay has a cost. Not just time, clarity, self-respect, trust in your own instincts. I felt that cost building, quietly, every time I ignored something that didn't sit right, every time I chose peace over precision, every time I let something slide that I would have called out in any other situation. And the worst part? You didn't ask me to do any of that. I chose it. That's what makes it heavier. Because it means this wasn't something done to me. It was something I participated in, fully aware, just unwilling to act. So now I'm sitting there, in that same silence, but it feels different, not heavy, sharp, like everything has edges now, clear lines I can't blur anymore, and I'm left with something I can't avoid any longer. If I knew the truth, if I felt the imbalance, if I saw the signs, then why didn't I leave when it mattered most? And more importantly, what does that say about me? That I stayed anyway. I didn't make the decision in a moment of strength. I made it when I ran out of ways to lie to myself. It was still night, same room, same silence, but it didn't feel heavy anymore. It felt finished, like the air had already accepted something I was just catching up to. I stood up slowly, not because I was tired, but because sitting there any longer felt like pretending, and I'm not good at pretending once I see the truth. I walked to the window, pulled the curtain just enough to let the outside bleed in. Empty streets, a single flickering light in the distance. Everything looked still, but not peaceful. More like paused, waiting for something irreversible to happen. That's when it settled. Not loudly, not dramatically, just clean. I'm letting this go. And the strange part? There was no anger attached to it, no rush of emotion, no need to prove anything. Just a quiet certainty that didn't ask for validation. That's how I knew it was real. Because decisions made from ego are loud. This one was silent, but don't mistake silence for ease. Because underneath that clarity, there was something else. Fear, not of losing you. I'd already accepted that. Fear of what comes after. You see, when you finally let go of something you've been holding together, you don't just lose it. You lose the version of yourself that existed inside it. And I wasn't sure who I'd be without that. That's the part no one prepares you for. People talk about moving on like it's progress, like it's growth, like it's something to be proud of, but they don't talk about the identity shift that comes with it, the empty space where something once defined how you thought, how you moved, how you felt. That space? It doesn't feel empowering at first. It feels unfamiliar, and I don't like unfamiliar, but I chose it anyway because the alternative was worse, staying in something I could now see clearly, pretending I didn't. That's a different kind of failure. The kind that erodes you slowly, quietly, until one day you wake up and realize you don't recognize yourself anymore, and I've come too far to let that happen. Still, I won't lie to you. There was a moment, right before I fully accepted it, where I hesitated, not because I doubted the decision, but because I remembered what it felt like when it was good, not perfect, but enough. Enough to make me believe it could become something more. And that's the trap. Not the pain, the potential. Potential is dangerous, because it doesn't exist in reality, it lives in imagination. And once you're attached to it, you start confusing what is with what could be. I did that. More than I should have, and now I had to separate the two, cut clean through the illusion without softening the impact. That's not easy, even for someone like me. Let me ask you something. Would you rather hold on to something that feels right sometimes, or face something that feels wrong all the time? Because that's the choice I was making, and for a long time, I kept choosing the first one. Moments over consistency, hope over evidence, feeling over fact. That's not how I operate anywhere else in my life, so why did I allow it here? That question stayed with me longer than anything else, because it forced me to admit something I don't say lightly. I wanted this to work more than I wanted to be right, and that sounds admirable, until you realize what it cost. Clarity, standards, self-trust, all traded slowly, for something that was never fully there. That's the uncomfortable truth. Sometimes we don't lose people, we lose ourselves trying not to lose them, and standing there, looking out into that empty night, I realized I had been getting close to that edge. Closer than I'd ever admit out loud. So I stepped back, not dramatically, not emotionally, just decisively. I let go, not of you, of the version of me that kept holding on, and that shift, it changed everything. Because now, when I think about you, it's different. There's no urgency, no need, no illusion left to protect, just clarity. And clarity has a cost, because once you see someone for who they are, you can't go back to who you thought they were. That door doesn't reopen, no matter how much you want it to. And here's where it gets complicated. I don't hate you. I don't resent you. If anything, I understand you more now than I ever did before. And maybe that's what makes this harder. Because it means there's no villain in this story. Just two people who didn't meet each other the same way. And that's not something you can fix, no matter how capable you are. So now I'm here, on the other side of a decision that took me longer than it should have. And everything is quieter, clearer, but not easier, because there's one thought I haven't been able to shake since I made it. If I had walked away the first time I felt something was off, would I respect myself more right now? Or would I still be wondering what I just gave up?